Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Line Change, the NHL betting podcast from the Action Network. My name is Michael Leboff. Joining me for this episode, every episode, are Tim Kalinowski and Nick Martin. And together, the three of us will break down Thursday's 12-game slate in the NHL. Much more to talk about than Wednesday's episode, which featured three games. And one listener gave us the absolutely appropriate feedback of three games. These lines look right. Move on. Could have been the shortest podcast in history. But a lot more fun to be had on the slate. A lot more fun. And when we get these big slates, we start with our underdogs, and we've got three of them of all different shapes and sizes and prices. Tim, you can kick us off.
Yeah, and that listener is lucky we don't have like a radio show where we like have to fill an hour or two every day, and we would find a way to talk about stretch it out for a full 2 hours with those games. Maybe interview some local media, all for us to just be like, yeah, I don't know, it still seems right, still split.
Yeah, this team could
So
win, and so could this team. I could see this happening, and I could also see this happening.
Yeah, exactly. And well, one thing that I could see happening is the Vegas Golden Knights being betting underdogs at the Tampa Bay Lightning on Thursday night. I could see them winning this game. This line's confusing to me. I was kind of having a hard time picking an underdog. That's what happens when you fill in our little rundown last there. You know, you get what you deserve. But I looked at Vegas here, and I overlooked them a little bit on this slate because it's so large. But this is a lot of betting respect for the Tampa Bay Lightning here. And when you look at, any metric you want to pick, Vegas is better. Goal differential, they're plus 29, Tampa Bay -4. Obviously, Tampa's best attribute is their power play, but Vegas has a top 10 kill percentage in the league. So I think that I'm, perfectly happy to take an underdog that I think plays a more consistent effort on a night-to-night or consistent looking game on a night-to-night basis versus a favorite in Tampa Bay that is so Jekyll and Hyde. I'd be really, really nervous laying it with Tampa Bay.
Yeah, I didn't love the spot if I'm gonna, look at it from a Knights perspective, because it's one of those things, they're a zillion points up on everyone. You win the cup, it is what it is. I always just feel like I get a little scared of these teams. But I think everything else you said is bang on. Like, it just still seems crazy to see them as a slight dog here. They play a way better defensive team game. Like, they've gotten a lot more support from up and down the lineup. So yeah, it does seem kind of crazy catching them as a slight dog here. It's just, yeah, the one pitfall I think is kind of the spot. I just get a little scared, but that's, kind of irrational and not the way you want to think about things. Just that, like, Tampa's right in the mix of this race and every game is huge. But I'll just kind of make that case for Tampa. But otherwise, yeah, I think it is what it is. You're getting the better team, clearly the better team as an underdog here. So hard to dispute that.
Tampa has just been the picture of mediocrity so far this season, and I think we all would agree that Vegas is one of the better teams in the league. So I'm with you here, Tim. I think it looks a good time, and if we're the fish, we're the fish. It
Yeah, I
happens.
mean, it happens. And Tampa's ceiling is like what's scary, but that's about it. Like that's like a hard thing to put your money on is like, I know that they can be this, but we're still waiting. Like it's,
Well, and like,
I'm
I
with
think
you.
you can question what the ceiling truly is right now, though,
That's true.
because
That's
like the
true.
depth isn't what it is. It's just not. So like, if you don't have those couple years in there, you're really just looking at the usual suspects, and they have all absolutely dominated Kucherov and Point and those guys. But the rest of the lineups, there's some clear edges for Vegas. So yeah, like it here as well.
No Mike Sergachev either, which I mean he hasn't been great this season, but still that means you're plugging in another player. And like Tampa, to their credit, has been a little bit better defensively of late. But they've been like the game against the Oilers, for example, like they were terrible defensively. They got to win, and if you're are you giving them credit for that win and then beating up on a Blues team that we all know can lay an egg, 2 or 3 times a week if they wanted to. So, um, yeah, I don't mind Vegas here. I know this one is really ugly, the one I'm about to give out here, but I feel like I have a pretty good feel for this Buffalo Sabres team. I was not buying, not drinking the Kool-Aid on them as much as a lot of other people before the season started.
God bless you, by the way.
Well, it was
For
because I decided to
that.
drink the Ottawa Senators Kool-Aid instead, and it almost felt like a this or that kind of thing. And then I feel like I've identified them as a team that they're just gonna have their nights where they can punch up, and they're gonna have, and those nights honestly mean absolutely nothing in the long term big picture. And I think this could be one, and it better be one for their sake, right, and for their coach's sake, and everybody's sake in Buffalo. They're welcoming the Toronto Maple Leafs, who are minus 162, to Western New York. Buffalo's plus 136. The total is 6.5. This will sound like a Maple Leafs home game. You'd imagine. I don't think any Sabres fans are going to come back. And kudos, credit to us for talking about the Blue Jackets as a live underdog against the Sabres the other night. But I think Buffalo here is live against a Toronto team that can absolutely pummel them if things are clicking, but it's still going to be a team that's trotting out either Martin Jones or Ilya Samsonov, still going to have a blue line that is banged up, and even when it was not so banged up, was not putting up great numbers. Will the big stars have a huge night? Maybe, and that'll completely crush this bet. But on the other side, like, Buffalo does have some talent that just should at some point sparkle through. And I'm hoping
The problem is they
it's
can't
here.
move the puck for shit though. Like,
Oh, they've been
it's
horrible.
shocking.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, what is it? This D core has got to be like one of the units that deserves to be downgraded the most in the entire league. I see some of the logic here, but it's like the Sabres are only plus 136. I don't know.
I completely agree with exactly what you said, Nick. I think that Leboff lays out a pretty good case for Buffalo, because when I look at fading the Leafs, I need a team that can compete with them in the skills competition, right? Especially with the Maple Leafs team that loves to go to extra time. So, I have to have confidence that it's not the Kraken out there, standing still as the Leafs run circles around them. So, but Buffalo has that capability, but it's not long enough for me, right? Like for that one kind of like Hail Mary type data point.
Yeah,
Maybe they see me coming.
it
Maybe they see
is.
me coming.
It's a big bounce back spot if they're going to show anything. I just think this team's flawed right now, so it scares me off of just being like, all
Yeah.
right, they're
Yeah. So I think that Toronto is too. And like, Toronto has the type of flaws that I think kind of lead them into these spots where, I mean, we saw it against Columbus in a way. I know the Leafs
that
ended
was
up.
kind of the nut bottom of everyone was sick. Everyone knew it.
Yeah.
Uh, I honestly power rate. Well, I was going to say this like it was shocking. I was going to say I honestly power rate Columbus a fair bit above Buffalo right
No,
now.
it's
And then
not.
it's like I guess they just completely slapped them, so that helps
They
make
did.
that case uh easier. Buffalo, like what can you even say? And why the hell is Ryan Johnson sitting? I know I messaged you guys about it, but it doesn't make any sense. You watch a decor that can't move the puck anywhere, and you're sitting your best puck mover. Owen Power continues to be disappointing. Connor Clifton is shocking. It's just, it feels to me like it's flawed personnel. The coach doesn't want to figure it out, doesn't maybe want to say the right things to some of the vets. I don't know. This is just like the bad end of things for Buffalo.
Also, Leboff, this could look like, you said it, a lot of Leafs fans kind of infiltrate northern, western New York there, and tend to, outnumber Sabres fans in the spot, cheaper tickets and whatnot. This could look like the real low for the Sabres if they get caved in on home ice with a crowd that is like severely outnumbered by their opponent,
Oh, it'd be nuts.
Yep.
right?
It'd be
Yep.
nuts if Granato got fired. It was just
I
last
know.
year we all thought he was a genius. He's the trendy,
Yeah. He was
young coach on the up and coming team, and that's really all gone out the window quick. Now people are comparing him to Kruger in Buffalo, which is a tough look.
Maybe it'll be Kyle Oposo, player coach. But yeah, it's a buy low spot, not something I'm so excited to go into. But I think the Sabres, there's a couple other teams that'll be fun to talk about on the slate, and two of them are playing each other with some sort of off ice stuff that's going to infiltrate a handicap, and that's certainly the case for Buffalo. Nick, you mentioned the Blue Jackets, and you talked about this spot on the episode for Wednesday, looking at a little look ahead to Thursday with your Washington Capitals traveling to America's biggest little town, Columbus. Caps are laying -120 right now. Columbus an even money underdog at home and a total of 6. You still like the Blue Jackets at this price? And did it open where you thought it was going to?
I was gonna say it did open close to there, and if there's one thing that maybe someone got out of that episode, I think that you would have been able to get slightly better numbers on Columbus if you tried as hard as you could at open. So hopefully that pays off, and we can say you got something out of that Tuesday episode, which we're getting chirped for. Yeah, I think right now it feels like Columbus is coming around a little bit, right? And I look at the talent on the roster. I don't hate this team right now. He's got, Gaudreau and Fantilli seem to be playing. They're good together in that last game. I think Gaudreau's finding it a little bit. The all Russian second unit looks pretty dangerous, and it just feels like they're kind of finding it. They've had a better stretch. Like we've kind of been onto this a little bit, and then you look at the Caps. They are the league's oldest team playing a big game versus the Islanders tonight, and I just think that we're going to kind of see how close these teams really are. If anything, it feels like a spot where, like, the prices probably, records aside, I think this is a pick 'em. So it's kind of ugly, but I actually think Columbus is really just a lot closer to Washington than people kind of think right now, and that this price is a good time to get in on that. So yeah, let's do it with the Blue Jackets. I think their depth can kind of give some problems here to the Caps, and they're going to kind of sneakily own the play in this game.
Yeah, I would have liked Columbus regardless of the back-to-back. And then you factor that in as well here with you mentioned it, an old Capitals team. Columbus, I just feel like I have far more hope for them right now than I do for Washington. So to get them as a dog here too, a little even money or plus money, like I said, I would like them regardless of the back-to-back, and that just makes it a little richer for me.
Yeah, they've been pretty scrappy. Like if you just look back to like this time a month ago, their record's pretty respectable. So they kind of have stabilized from when it was just a complete nightmare start. There's still some weird things going on with like the player development. I don't really get the Juricic sitting and some of that good stuff, but that also goes to show that they do kind of still have a roster filled with competent NHL bodies. So I think that puts them ahead of a lot of teams and can give the Caps some problems here.
Sorry, Leboff, were you going to jump in?
Oh, you.
Oh no, I was just gonna say that I feel like Columbus, I'd have to go back and do the math, but I feel like they've come through on being the team that is facing another team in a bad spot and have come through. Just thinking about it, we've been on them a couple times in spots that were not necessarily play on Columbus, but fade the other team, and Columbus has delivered for us. So now they won't. So now I said it.
Yeah, they're 4-5-1 in their last 10, the Blue Jackets. So
I think it's a little better than that if you run it back a month too. I think it's like exactly 500, which is definitely profitable.
Because they started like 4-3, and then they lost like 8 or 9 in a row, and then they've come around. Good, good on them. I think that a plus money price on Columbus is fine as well. All right, let's take a look at the big board for Thursday night. We'll start with the Blues and Panthers. This one in Florida. The Cats traveling back after a swing through the Pacific Northwest and Western Canada. St. Louis plus 185. Panthers minus 225. The total 6.5. I think we all are in agreement that this Panthers team is one of the best in the Eastern Conference. It is a tough spot for them here, Tim, but is the number on St. Louis tempting enough for you to go to your classic, catching a team on the first game back after a long jaunt on the other side of the continent?
No. Takes two to tango here. And when I talked about Columbus coming through in spots of catching their opponents, in a bad spot, I don't like the Blues I don't think they're serviceable for what we're asking them to do here. I love this Panthers team. I think they're absolutely nails. So no, I'm gonna, I don't play it every time. I really don't like the Blues. I'm sorry. I can't give you much more other than I'm not buying any of the new coach bounce or anything like that. I still think they're pretty mediocre.
Yeah, and I mean the market's telling us too that there's a pretty chunky gap between these two teams because Florida was, they've kind of hit a lull in terms of their actual results, 5-4-1 in their last 10, a couple losses on the road trip, and but if you look under the hood, everything still checks out for them. They've just maybe not got the bounces that they deserved, and they are tilting the ice and driving play in the right direction. Whereas the Blues, man, it's kind of the same old story with this team. We'll see if there is some
Yeah.
like bigger improvement when we get 10 or 15 games into this Drew Bannister tenure, but I think it's going to be tough for him with this roster.
Yeah, that's right. The reality for Bannister and this Blues roster and Berube, who wore the axe, which whatever, like at some point you got to change. But this team wasn't supposed to be that good at all. Nobody was picking them to be that good. So whatever, change the coach, do all that stuff. But and I think too for like the Panthers spot when you talk about flying home, Tim, and like having to get up for it, that's a disappointing 2-3 road trip where they showed pretty well too, which kind of makes me think a little more like you're still in the heat of a really tight playoff race here, and you definitely should be a team that gets in. So I think that kind of makes me think you're ready to go in this spot, and their depth can definitely cause some problems, like heavy aggressive forecheck versus this Blues decor. I think price seems right for sure.
Too many, excuse me, too many better games on this slate to try and find something here.
Including a Stanley Cup Finals preview between the Nashville Predators and Philadelphia Flyers. Preds plus 105, Flyers minus 125, a total of 5.5. Philly comes away with a win that when you're the Flyers, I think it's almost a little unfair to call a win undeserved against a Devils team, but like they were outplayed and if you look at it, but that's what they're gonna do. Like they're just gonna hang around and do their
That's what the
thing.
Devils are gonna do. That
Yeah,
was
exactly.
literally just exactly their MO.
Yeah. It was just
Yeah.
I won't walk away from that game feeling worse about the Flyers is what I should say. Like that's just wasn't they weren't gonna walk into that building and just like dominate the Devils more often than not. So that being said, the only angle I'd maybe explore here is because the Flyers like are just going to overtime every game now too, and they went to overtime against this Predators team like a week ago. Like maybe you can talk me into that, but I think it looks about correct here. Maybe a little tempting on Nashville, but what do you got, Nick?
Yeah, I think we've kind of talked about both these teams a lot. The price looks fair to me. I didn't really have much to hang around on here. We kind of like both these teams lately, I think, and Philly just continues to be really scrappy, hanging around in every single game. But you keep looking at Nashville. That Vancouver performance aside, it's the same kind of thing. They continue to look more creative offensively and showing some decent depth. So I thought this looked pretty fair to me. I think you're going to get a pretty competitive, closely fought game here. So yeah.
I love both these teams so much that whatever team I'm not going to bet it because whatever team I would pick, it would lose. And I just don't want to think any less of these teams by getting burnt by them because I like them so much. I feel like, but whatever happens, I'll be like, oh, should have bet the Predators, should have bet the Devils because, I really think highly of these two. I would say for me, it's probably Preds or pass because if I think they're this close, that I would lean with just the underdog here. I don't think there's a big margin.
Yeah, I agree. I kind of thought we might get a price on the Predators, but this also is just one of those ones where you got to, just think there is juice on top of you needing to pick a side here. So when you get into a game where it's just going to be this closely contested, looks like a good time to pass.
Wish there was just a prop where you can bet like really competitive effort.
Exactly.
For both teams. Yes.
The tie. You just don't
but
you gotta.
I don't even care if it's like a 4-2 final. Like I wish there was just 3 judges that would give you, if it's 8 or better in terms of their effort.
No, you bet really good pass on the board. If it's like, and if it comes down to
it's really unfair that you don't get rewarded. I guess you sort of do by not spending the money, but you don't get rewarded for a good pass. All right, Oilers and Devils. I think when the season started, a lot of people probably looked this game up. Or like, here's a Stanley Cup preview in Jersey. I know these teams just met on a Sunday, almost 2 weeks ago now. The Oilers are -102 on the road. Devils -118. Total of 7. It is the front end of a back-to-back for Edmonton, and they start Calvin Pickard in this one. It would be I'm interested to see how the market reacts to that news because I mean he is worse than Stuart Skinner, but you're really rolling the dice with anybody in goal with Edmonton all season. So nonetheless, I still think New Jersey's worth a play here as a slight home favorite. Was impressed with that effort against Philly. Like things are looking like they're going in the right direction for the Devils. The goaltending there is, of course, pretty frightening here. The high total tells you everything that you need to know about this game. That we could see an absolute, I think everybody will expect like a seesaw here, but when they played in Edmonton, it was not that at all. It was just really
that
good
was
effort.
clearly kind of like the sleepy end of things,
Yeah,
though. I
tough
think
spot
that
for the
felt
Devils.
like, yeah, that kind of reminds me of like the first Leafs Rangers game where it almost just feels like the game didn't even get played.
Right,
As
yeah.
ridiculous as that seems, like it's just like
it felt like
could
you
just
knew
kinda
the
see.
Oilers. You knew the Oilers were going to win that game 30 seconds into it. Like the Devils just
Yeah,
weren't.
like
Like they just weren't
they
there.
weren't there.
Yeah.
I
I think New Jersey at below -25 is fine.
yeah, I didn't really have anything here because the Oilers are playing so damn good. They're both kind of in the same boat. They're right at the top of the league in terms of expected goals the last bit. It looks, if you watch like the eye test, I think will clearly tell you that too. Like if you look at the Oilers games under Knobloch, it really has just been as fair as saying like the ones they've lost, I think pretty much have been goaltending. You look at the Tampa game, you look at the Islanders game, I don't think the goaltending was that bad, but they definitely ran pretty unlucky to only manage to get one in the net out of their chances. I don't think that would be happening on average. I don't hate your Devils take either. I just kind of view both these teams as teams that are going to continue to trend upwards significantly moving forward, and they're both really just in the exact same boat with this goaltending completely tanking them and scoring less than expected. And yeah,
I do actually, funny enough, Leboff, that you kicked this off with the Stanley Cup final. I have an exact cup final future with these two teams and the way that their seasons have gone. I think I have a cash out option of about 4 cents. So I'm not going to be biting there. If this game is probably, and don't get mad at me, our Twitter guy that said we passed on all these games. This is like a complete foil to the Predators Flyers game. And that seems like a coin flip game of two teams that play a low variant style or like to play a low variant style. Where here, I think it's a coin flip game with a total of 7, two teams with high variance. So I'm pretty nervous about picking a side here because either one of them can fill the net in a blink. So I was hoping one of you guys would convince me the other way.
No, I think the tie at +390 is not a bad look at all either. It's not as ideal in higher variance games where one of these teams' goalies could let in the first 4 shots, but I also think it's a really good spot where they're both going to play a pretty sharp effort and the game can be closely contested. That was kind of the way I viewed that Devils Philly game. I think it kind of applies here as well. And more and more, we're seeing these teams get to overtime and just, not be at all concerned to win the game in the final 10 minutes. So I think that play is always interesting right now if you're talking about a game you think is going to be, pretty close score lines. So yeah, I don't mind that at all.
Still waiting on Dr. Leboff to tell us the overtime numbers there.
Yeah. Oh, well, it was fun. It's so funny that I brought that up because then I listened to yesterday's episode on of The Point on Sirius XM NHL Radio, and Boomer Gordon he's like, it feels like there's been a lot of overtime games, but there haven't. It's basically been on average. The problem, why people think it is because there's like 4 teams doing the heavy lifting.
Oh yeah.
Toronto,
True.
the Islanders, the Flyers, and I believe the Canadiens all are at like 12 or more. And so you every night that they're playing, and the Flyers now too, like every night they're playing, the games are going to overtime, and everyone's like, every game's going to overtime. But it's a lot of Eastern Conference teams are, and then a lot of Western Conference teams aren't, which puts us into
Yeah, because some of those Western teams are never in competitive
Yeah,
games.
exactly. Like
They
you're not seeing
they
many.
gotta do the 3-point regulation win. It would be so much better. And I know some people want to get rid of the loser point, but I'll raise the point that I always say, which is if you do that, it puts more onus on the shootout and the 3-on-3, which everybody hates right now. Everyone's bitching about how big of a joke they all are. So if you get rid of those or the loser point, those skills contests matter more, which to me is an even bigger joke. So the solution is a 3-point regulation
all of a,
win.
s- all of
Hopefully
a sudden,
that idea.
Eric Christensen and Rob Schremp are going to get NHL jobs.
Yeah,
Just sit
exactly.
on the
Because
bench and we'll
the
tap you.
teams that are
We'll
five and
tap.
one in the shootout are
Yeah.
gaining even more ground than they would have.
Uh, Canucks and Stars up next. This is a fun one for a couple of reasons here. Like Vancouver is just trudging. Vancouver's just chugging along. They're plus 124 in Dallas. The Stars are minus 148 and a total of 6.5. Dallas, no Jake Ottinger for a little while here, which I think it's not the sole reason I like the Canucks here, but it does obviously help that we're going to be getting Scott Wedgwood, who I think is totally serviceable as an NHL backup. Um, and when you now put him against the Canucks goaltending, like the gap just becomes so much wider, so the avenues just become more evident because the thing with Vancouver right now is they are getting wins. I think they do a pretty good job of limiting. In soccer, it'd be like a final third entry, which is conversion rate, which is like what percentage of the chances that they do give up or shots that they do give up are actually um, threatening. And I think Vancouver's been giving up a lot of volume, but not too much quality. The numbers bear that out as well. This game feels pretty close to a coin flip with the goaltending disparity, and I feel like I haven't bet on Vancouver all that often. It's been a couple games now that I have lately, and I'm happy to do it here, Nick.
Yeah, I agree. I was like, I don't think we're that high on the Canucks, and I was pretty surprised to see this level of market disrespect towards them. Um, they've been like kind of one of the most debated teams in the entire league in terms of how good is this team really. I feel like you see it constantly debates from all the sides, but I don't think you have to say they're this good here to think that they can hang around with Scott Wedgwood often enough that they shouldn't be plus 126. Especially when kind of their whole MO has been like the ability to hang around. Like, I don't think they're going to come out here and dominate the Stars, but they've got maybe the world's best goaltender. We're hoping so on this podcast. And like they're going to come out here, they're going to make it tough on the Stars. And I feel like they keep getting up for these spots too. They keep getting kind of challenged. It feels like that they're not legit. So just I agree. I think you're getting a pretty good number. It's I like I guess I kind of see it because I think the Canucks are like a little worse than their record, but it still seems hard to believe that this is the number. I think you're getting a pretty good price to try and look for just kind of a closely contested battle.
Yeah, well, that was helpful. I was looking to see what I was missing here with this line. I mean, it is it's really confusing because I guess you could say Vancouver being the last game of this road trip is part of like what's being baked in here, but super disrespectful to the Vancouver Canucks. The books are clearly taking a stance on what they think of Vancouver in this spot with no Ottinger for Dallas. So I was leaning Canucks already, and none of you guys really talked me out of it. So I really have a hard time making sense of this line. It's really disrespectful to Vancouver again, who we have been on this very skeptical of already on this podcast.
Yeah, I mean, you don't. That's the thing, though. You don't have to rate the Canucks that high. I think here to think this looks a little long. Like I'm sure the odds makers have some numbers that show how good their private models. I'm sure show that the Canucks are running pretty damn good. Everyone kind of knows it, but at the same time, they keep making every single game a game, and I have a feeling we'll see something similar here. So I think you're getting a good number to try and punt on the Canucks.
Uh, Took my medicine on Tuesday night, um, passing on the Minnesota Wild in a bet a game I wanted to bet them on, but got scared off because Marc-Andre Fleury got the nod against the Bruins instead of the Penguins, and that whole kerfuffle. Minnesota ends up winning in overtime. If I bet it, they would have lost in overtime. So I guess it doesn't. It's a moot point. Now they host the Montreal Canadiens. The Habs coming in as a plus 180 underdog, Wild minus 218, and a total of 6. This is the kind of price I would never mind betting Montreal at, and against a team that you'd be buying high on Minnesota at the moment. They're off and running under John Hines. It's yep, pretty clear that the coaching switch, however you want to quantify it, did jolt them enough or whatever. They have a plus 10 goal differential, 5-on-5 over their last 10 games. But so much of that is just incredible goaltending and just a higher shooting percentage. Would you look at that? Maybe Dean Evison wasn't
Oh, he got the
that
shit
bad.
end of the
Yeah,
stick.
yeah,
They were
absolutely.
like at the top of the
Yep.
league. I was saying this. They're at the top of the league the last like 6 games in expected goals before he got fired, and that they really were just clearly pretty unlucky.
Yeah.
And then you know it, they get a good schedule, they get some bounces, and they look like a whole different team.
The narrative of the Sabres kind of, I wanted to talk about them right away in the show, and that's maybe why I chose them over the Habs here as my favorite underdog. The more and more I think about it, the more and more I like Montreal in the spot in Minnesota. If you could even just put the numbers next to each other, right? Like Minnesota, like I said, they are a plus 10 goal differential right now at 5-on-5 in their last 10 games. Their expected goal differential is plus 0.9. So they are due for a little bit of comeback to earthness. I know it was the opposite of that before the coaching change, but the Habs have the goaltending to stick with it here. Like Jake Allen, Sam Montembeault, they've been really good. So I don't hate Montreal at these kind of numbers because you know that they're just going to scrap for every inch of the ice. And I don't think Minnesota's the type of team that really profiles as a big favorite here. Nick, I know you're a lot more skeptical on Montreal than I am. It does sound like you've changed your tune a bit, like the last 7 or 8 games or 7 or 8
I
days.
feel like it's
But
kind of in the spots though. I don't
yeah,
know. I my tune with this team is they are kind of a good team you want to back just to hang around and just
yep,
claw. I think the overtime's always in play if you think Montreal can win and compete because that's kind of just their MO. It's literally just to like hang around. All their games are the same damn thing. They just try to make as few mistakes as possible and kind of take it, just be opportunistic when they can. I think this sets up as the same kind of spot, same kind of thing they just did in Winnipeg would be awesome. So yeah, I don't mind it at all. Like Montreal plus 1.5 is probably on the table. I think overtime's a decent bet. Montreal to win by 1 goal. It just feels like those are always there. This team never blows anyone out. They just want to hang around, get goaltending, make, avoid critical breakdowns, and just, yeah, it feels like they really, Martin St. Louis gets what this roster is. I
yep.
think right now he gets what he needs to do with this team. So yeah, I think that does all work towards your play here when we're talking about this long of a number.
Yeah, and also too, I think you laid it out pretty well, and I lean Habs after that conversation I just heard between you two, especially because Minnesota, they got the new coach bump here, and they just beat Boston, and now they come
Now
back
John
home.
Hines has to do some coaching, which
Yeah,
look out.
Exactly. So now that they come back here, and I don't know if Montreal went back to Montreal after going to Winnipeg, but the Habs likely waiting on Minnesota here, and I think this would be a spot for Minnesota to take a breath from the new coach bump, and you can't be up for every single game, and so we're the part of the pen and pencil handicapping is this a spot where Minnesota could take a breath and laying a big number. I don't think they're that good to lay a number like this. And so, yeah, you know what? Montreal, they can hang around. And I think you brought up a good point. Sometimes when I like a dog a lot, I'll have a little fun and bet like reverse puck line, 3-way, stuff like that. Montreal, not the case with them because the formula for them is go to overtime.
Yeah, they've had shockingly few wins by 2 goals. Especially if you factored out ones like they hit the empty net versus the Islanders on Saturday,
Yeah,
but
they were also up 4-0 in that one, so you could look at it.
yeah, but it gets
Yeah,
close because they're
yeah,
not
yeah,
that good. So
yeah.
once the other team turns it on, it's always a game.
And the schedule makers sending the Islanders to Montreal in that spot, that was rough.
Yeah, we have a joke. Mike always seems to manage to curb it, so the Islanders always have the toughest schedule in the league. I
They're the
can't
only
believe we need to play a game in Montreal.
they're
It's
the
just
only team that plays back-to-backs and travels in any sport, not
and
just
has
hockey.
injuries. No
Yeah,
one
Maybe if
has injuries.
maybe if Lou actually like spoke once or twice, like, you know, they'd get a little more love. And so that, you know, maybe if we got to know the guy a little bit more, they could kind of humanize him a little bit and
Part
throw
of his
him a bone.
allure. We love him. We just love him so much.
All right, let's get off the Islanders real
This is
quick now.
this is the best. This is the best game, I think. Maybe of the week.
Oh, I know where we're going here.
There's two things happening here off the ice with the Senators and Avs. Here the odds don't really matter. Senators plus 150, Colorado's minus 180, waiting for them in Colorado. A total of 6.5. Let's start with the Avalanche. Devon Taves, quiet, reserved, smooth skating, former Islander. Devon Taves comes out and says that the way he put it was so funny. He thinks that there are people on the Avalanche that think they are playing good, but they're really not because they just don't know how the Avalanche play, which basically to me sounded like you don't understand you can't keep up with our incredible
It
players.
was like a polite way of saying.
Yeah. Like Cale Makar is so much better than you. Nathan McKinnon's so much better than you. Mikko Rantanen is so much better. And I'm so
And
much
it's
better
funny
than you.
because it's true. Like we
Yeah,
had just
I know.
said before that Chicago game, I said without Cale Makar, I think people would be shocked at where I would power rate this Avs team right now. And then we looked at the standings. I was a little surprised that they were that high because it doesn't feel like it's been that smooth.
It feels like they lose every night. I feel like every night I wake up and I see the Avalanche of loss.
And granted, part of that is like you think this team is so damn good that when they do lose to anyone bad, you're like, wow.
And
But
when they win, you just gloss over it. Yep.
When you really look at it, like none of the new additions are really working, and the depth of this lineup is not good at all. So it really is like it's not necessarily surprising to hear Taves say that.
Right. Yeah, I think you could argue that perhaps the best new face in the lineup has been Ross Colton. And has he been that good?
Yeah, and I mean, exactly. Has he been that good? And look where he's playing.
Right.
Like,
yeah.
He's still like in like kind of an important role where it's like he hasn't been good relative to what you're saying they need.
Right.
So yeah, I think it's like I don't know, not a outrageous complaint from Taves.
No, it's great. I love the way you said it. I love the way you said it.
Yeah.
It was the type of thing that he's been waiting to say because he did say it so perfectly, carefully, like weaving in and out of just saying, yeah, these guys who aren't as good as us, the good players on this team, need to stop fucking.
Well, and they're probably a little fed up with the situation of like, you know, the teams got gutted since they won the cup and how last year went and all that. And they're probably realizing like, hey, if we don't get some serious enforcements here, like this year's not it either. Which there's lots of room left for that to happen. Like this team's got to be pretty active. I'm sure they're aggressive.
They've already been
exploring all options.
The first domino has dropped. So the Taves thing is side one of this.
And the Makar
equation.
thing is a huge.
Yeah.
He moves the needle as much as any skater pretty much in the league. So his status, he's very day to day. And it does sound like he's probably like close to a game time decision here. And I'm sure their dream would be not to play him, but now they're maybe a little more concerned about their place in the standings than they would be otherwise.
And you know what Senators fans are thinking? They're thinking the way I would think about this if I was the Islanders, which is just our luck. Like we're going to be the team to welcome back Cale Makar into the lineup. Speaking of those Senators.
Oh, yeah.
Speaking of those Senators, though. Up 3-0. The new coach bounce has lasted a month for the Wild, and it's lasted 7 weeks for the Oilers, or whatever it's been.
One period.
It lasted 3 or 4 games for the Blues. It lasted 25 minutes for the Ottawa Senators, who blew a 3-0 lead to the Arizona Coyotes in Arizona. There were a couple inexcusable losses on Tuesday night from two teams that everybody wanted to get into it. I still think that Ottawa loss was probably the worst loss from any team on the season. Like,
Yeah, I agree. I
how on
thought it
earth?
was clearly worse. The worst, Buffalo put a good honorable bid in there with their 9-4 loss to Columbus, but the Sens just really blew that out of the water. Like, who the fuck do the Senators think they are to play one period and get up 3-0 and completely mail it in? It wasn't even, I don't even know if we can feel hard done by. People were calling it a bad beat.
No.
And everyone else who bet it, which was seemingly everyone who bets the NHL, was pissed. And it's like, they got pummeled. They never probably should have been up 3-0 in the first place. I think the only positive for us on this pod was at least the Yotes looked sick. Hopefully that wasn't just that they were playing the Senators. And you can't even blame Martin or anything like that. He didn't even take the morning skate with the team. So
I was about to say, we need to
let him
factor
off the
in.
hook right away.
We need to
What can you
factor
even
in.
say if you're the Sens, though? I hate using the term banned in betting. I think that's kind of like a fishy thing to say. But like, they're making a really firm case that we just have to give up, because no matter how good of a spot, they'll find an excuse. And they sure did.
This spot could have been
Oh, I still hate
even
that
better. It could have been even better than the
I
last
hate
spot,
that I
like when you
think,
talk
like,
about like narratives. But now they're running into
odds-wise, I
this
think
Avalanche team.
I think odds-wise, like, if Makar sits, the Sens honestly might be the
Yeah.
right play here. I'm just not doing it. I hate this team.
I mean, I think it was pretty well said by you two guys. I mean,
I should go get my Patrick Lalime jersey out.
I mean,
They'll
my
find
God,
a way to lose.
What I think into our future handicapping here, when we try and cap the new coach bounce, we have to factor in: did the old coach just get done running morning skate? I mean, it's like, what in the I turned it off when the Senators were up 3-0. I said, "Oh, great cap, Tim. Well done." Yeah, I know this league like the back of my hand. This whole line change thing ain't that hard. Yeah, joke. Exactly, Nick. Where do you get the gall to mail it in like that? It's so putrid, so wretched. And Colorado just shut Makar down until after the break. Get some new pieces. Like,
let us bet the Sens one more time, please.
Yes.
I
Sit him
can't. I
down.
can't.
Sit him down.
I hate it because I look at it. I'm looking at their roster right now, and I'm like, oh yeah, I think on paper that unit. Like, at what point too do the players deserve a whole hell of a lot more fault? I've complained to you guys about Kachuk lately. That guy gets a pass because he fights. His fight versus Dumbo was excellent. I wish he saved some gumbo to put a puck in the net, because that would have won us a bet instead of the fight. But like, I keep looking at this roster and I'm like, okay, head to head with the Avs and what's left of the Avs right now, Thursday night, like, what are they, plus 164? Like, that sounds okay, but I don't know. I hate this team.
There is something, like, it's hard to quantify, but there's something to be said about a team that can just that can lose a game in a number of ways, and Ottawa is that right now. They can lose
they're
game.
mentally weak.
Yeah, they can lose a game in so many different ways. And
I mean, there's bounces and there's variance and there's all that good stuff in hockey, but then at the end of the day right now, the Sens team is mentally weak. And that's why I question why some of the big dogs don't get called out the same as some of these other teams. Like, they never win. They don't show any resolve in these big moments. Angus Crookshank had his guy.
Yeah.
He put a puck in the net.
Yeah,
and then their top dogs. Shout out to the Yotes top dogs too, who handed it to the Sens big names in that game and really just fed them their lunch, kind of owned them at 5-on-5.
It's kind of funny. Like, the Coyotes have, in a development and just roster construction way, have just simpler. They seem like so much simpler put together. There's no glitz and glamour to their, like, star names, but they're just better than Buffalo and Ottawa. They're just better.
They're the opposite end of things, where clearly they like being in these games. Like, you could just feel it once that game got to 3-3 last night.
And
we should have been loving it. Like, the pod should have been pumped, but we were on the Sens.
We love this.
We had to sit here and hate this amazing Yotes comeback.
If you swapped the Senators and Leafs logos, could you imagine?
I think it's such a valid point. I can't even imagine the hate that would be going on with the top guns.
Two of the players would have already been arrested for just lack of effort or something. Underperformance.
And I mean, credit, like, I think the Sens fans and media, I've seen this week, they're kind of taking it and starting to be like, hey, I said this in the summer. That was pretty idiotic. I said that we'd be better than the Leafs soon. That was pretty idiotic. It's
Yeah,
just, and they were talking about how they signed up their whole core for so long,
I
which I
know.
agree. Some of those contracts looked good. And it's like, well, you signed them for less because they had done absolutely nothing. And now they continue, like, they haven't won in the regular season. You want to make all these first round chirps for forever.
Yeah, there's I would say two players on Ottawa that you could say have delivered, and one of them is however old Claude Giroux is. Him.
Yeah, G's having a quiet good year.
Yeah, eat that
Yeah.
shit. It's gonna be a great Islander
And
at the deadline.
Sanderson.
Yeah,
He's doing what
Sanderson's.
he can.
Yeah.
Yeah,
They really need Shabbat like back.
they
Like
do.
Yeah, I
they
know.
rely so much
And
on
they
him.
were so
And
dinged up, but now it's
and
been like a
people
month since
right,
then.
and people I've been pointing to the Shabbat injury, but every team,
Yeah, I fully agree. Yeah.
you're every team's gonna lose a Shabbat. Every team. So
Oh, they're past the point where the injuries were stockpiled and
Yep.
it was like you're playing with half your roster, and now they just don't have
Right.
Shabbat. And it's like, okay, that's not enough. Jacob Chikrin too has had a sneaky bad year. He's kind
Yep.
of
And
started
not
to really fall off.
and not to compare them any further, but there's no reason they can't do what the Maple Leafs do and like outscore, weak defensive core, like banged up defensive core, like not stable goaltending. Like there's no reason they can't do that.
no, it's makes no sense. The goaltending certainly needs to get better. Anyways, on the Sens tomorrow, so that'll be good. Out to the best bets. Now, Canes and Penguins. We'll start there. We're gonna start with you, Nick. Carolina's traveling as a slight favorite, -118. Pittsburgh -102, a total of 6. I saw this one coming from a mile away. When I saw the line when they started to populate this morning, I was like, I just know I can almost do Nick's argument for him in the best bet segment. I had a feeling this one was coming.
Yeah, I mean, it's not going to be tough to sell to anyone because I think everyone's pretty damn low on this Penguins team. But Carolina continues to just look like the old Carolina. Like they're more or less look perfectly fine. Look like the team we've seen for 3 years roll through the regular season and even last playoffs, if you want to throw that in there too. This core really did play pretty damn well. And you've got Svechnikov back in the mix. He had a goal the other night. It feels like the offense is about to get humming. I look at this roster and it is just so damn good. So, in the underlying results, again, they're right at the absolute top of the league. It really is just as simple as needing saves from their goaltender, Kochekov, who's been fine. He's been okay recently, right? It's been like a 6-game sample of him stabilizing and making the saves he's supposed to. So, especially if you kind of discredit those garbage time goals Tuesday. So I even continue to be a little higher on the Penguins than I think most people are. It's been so ugly the times that they have lost, and there's so many cheap narratives just to like pick on with this Pens team. So but the thing is, you don't even need to like I can credit the Pens and still be like, this is the price here. It's pretty surprising. It seems like another disrespectful number towards Carolina. So I think their 4 lines can definitely cause problems with versus the Penguins. It can definitely force some pucks, make life tough in the neutral zone, get aggressive on the forecheck. And I think depth is a good way to expose this Penguins core right now. And if you look at Carolina's lineup, they've got really balanced units right now. If all the guys keep playing decent, Marty Necas is kind of finding his game. I think that's interesting because it was really surprising to see how bad he showed at the start of the year. Yeah, this just seemed like a little too much credit to the Penguins for me. Even as someone who probably thinks like back half they're going to be better than people expect, or like I can at least see the arguments as to why, like statistically, they should be a little better than people expect. But yeah, this is just a great number, I think, to attack Carolina.
Yeah, I like Carolina here. I think Carolina is well worth a bet. Also, I don't want to. Your analysis was really good. I just want to add 2 things here, 2 prices. Carolina plus 650 to win the Metro, and they're 25-1 to win the President's Trophy. President's Trophy, like it's probably the same bet, honestly. Like So I would just, if you're interested in them winning the Metro, I would just take the President's Trophy number. 50 games left for Carolina. They're on 37 points right now. They're probably, I I don't even think you need to look at the other teams. I think the bet is almost like a yes, no. Will they get another 80 points this season, which would put them at 117 with 50 games to left. I don't think it's crazy. So that's just one thing to think about long term with Carolina. Tim, what were you gonna say?
No, that's a really good point. I feel like it's really head to head with the Rangers. If you think about it, that's going to be that's basically what you're saying there. And I'd rather have my money on Carolina than New York, even regardless of the pricing there, because I think that we're about to see Carolina ascend a little bit here. I was scared off initially from the number because maybe I'm an idiot. I keep waiting for Pittsburgh to pop. Like, I feel like people keep telling me that they're supposed to pop soon, and that, like, I don't know, do you feel that way, guys, in the media, that I feel like Pittsburgh is still getting talked about highly now?
Yeah, I mean, you look at it, their analytics really aren't bad, and they have had a hard time finishing, which hasn't really been expected. That whole month-long power play drought thing really did honestly lose them some games strictly on that. So if you like think they can clean that up, which seems logical considering who's there, uh, I can see it. But like we're talking about Carolina here, I feel like you can still rate Carolina pretty damn well if they get any saves. So. And right in the thick of the playoff mix too. Like this is a huge game for Carolina. So yeah, I don't know.
And just
Hard to
pulling out
pass.
popping up Pittsburgh's schedule here. I'm sure you could do this with a lot of teams, but I'm just going to do it because I'm looking at it right now. They like beat everyone they should and like lose to everyone they should. They're the definition of like the NHL's middle class right now. They I looked. They have beat up on like Arizona and Montreal, and you know, but then they're losing like the teams like Buffalo. They've lost to Anaheim. Like they feel like the NHL's middle class to me if you pull up their schedule. So that would lead me to say that Carolina's a little nice little cheap bargain here. I don't know if I'll play it because there's a lot of games here, but I'm moderately convinced.
I can't believe I'm doing it, but I'm doing it again. The Coyotes are minus 155 in San Jose. Sharks coming back at plus 130. The total here is 6. The Coyotes did look really good in that second period and beyond against the Senators. They got jolted. It woke them up. But the Sharks team, I think that they're better than this number, and the gap in these odds would imply. Hate to do it. I hate to do it, but I think that the Sharks against the Coyotes, that's my favorite bet on the night, is getting San Jose here as a plus 130 underdog. And I wouldn't be surprised if if you can sit back and wait a little bit, because like I said, the Coyotes are coming off that impressive win, and the Sharks are the Sharks. Nick, anything here?
Yeah, I agree with you. I didn't really want to do it bad enough on this big slate because I feel like I've had enough fading our Coyotes. If they have another electric win, I want to cheer them on. So,
Well, yeah,
uh,
and nothing's an electric win like going to the Shark Tank and taking 2 points
yeah,
out.
but the counter side of that too, I fully agree. I mean, that Sens game was also like their most impressive performance for a while. The offense has looked more or less pretty flat, except for when you've got the Senators just sitting there and letting them get caved in. Uh, and the Sharks game included. Like, if you talk about that performance from last Friday night, I did go on the Sharks in that game. And it was really, really competitive and close, which was kind of exactly what I thought I was getting with that number. Sneaky low event, which was also what I was expecting. I think we might see again tomorrow night. And more, it just feels like the Sharks are playing a pretty well structured team game. There's some buy-in going on. Some of the veterans are coming around with better performances lately and look pretty invested. So I think you can kind of flush the Kings game. That was kind of just like a trademark Kings performance. Got all 4 of their lines rolling and just got 2 points that they really needed. But aside from that, it's been pretty competitive. So I definitely think the Sharks have a pretty good chance to play to their number here, and don't expect this to be like a game where Arizona just caves it in and runs away with it early at all.
Leboff, you're right about this game, but the problem is, and you make it Are the problem is, are we Yotes fans if this is your best bet? You know,
Yeah,
it's
I
And
know
it's
it's
been
tough.
too often. That's
I
the thing.
know
It's been
it's
too
killing me.
often. I'm like, I can't just fully
It's killing
commit
me.
to this bit.
And I'm not even lying to you. A couple nights ago, I had a dream about the Jack Adams awards being given out, and the award was given to Rick Tocchet. I in my dream I saw it on Twitter, and then under that was a story saying that the reason that they didn't give it to Rigney was because they can't give it to the Arizona Coyotes because of
Well, I've already been
all the
mentally
drama.
preparing for
because
the
of all the
chance that
drama.
That was what it is. Like the arena drama. Like in my head, I was like, you're dreaming yourself into like preparing for losing this bad beat. So
yeah, I'm mentally preparing for Turigny to be a nominee just to
yeah,
give us enough of a sweat on the 101 to
yeah,
1. But ultimately knowing deep down that it's gonna go to like Tocchet or Lavi and just hating that, but like also having to convince myself that I'm excited to hear the award announced and then just being pissed off with the result. I feel like that's potentially where it's heading, but hopefully not. So I don't know. I think we got to get back to blindly backing the Yotes brand
yep,
here.
yep. Next week,
Yeah.
Sharks this week, Yotes next week. Tim, your favorite bet on Thursday night?
My favorite bet on Thursday night is the Calgary Flames. They are traveling to Southern California to play the Anaheim Ducks. Calgary's about a minus, what do we call them here? Minus 140, 150-ish favorite. This, Leboff, is one of the ones that falls into my favorite spot here. Anaheim coming off of a East Coast trip, 4 games. First game back in lovely, nice Southern California. And there's a Flames team that I think is in a class above Anaheim. I know that we've had quite some fun trying to nail some Flames bets, but I think this is cheap enough where I'm ready to swallow the overtime loss that I can see in a dream, Leboff. That would probably be my daydream is how this ends up. But no, I just think it's a pretty good spot for Calgary here, and 150 to me is cheap enough for a Anaheim team that, come on, guys, they're not necessarily the Vegas Knights.
Yeah, I
No,
like Calgary here. I like Calgary.
yeah, I can't argue with that.
Yeah, it's. Do you remember when the Ducks had the Flames had this curse going to Anaheim, like they couldn't win in Anaheim?
Oh, I
Um,
always use that. I use
yeah,
that stat all the time when people throw needless trends out
yeah.
there that don't
It
have
was
any. And then
nuts.
once the Ducks were shit and the Flames became good again, the Flames started winning
Yep.
games. Like that one was a little bit past that. There was probably some actual juju going on there, but it's one of those things like when you just throw a stat like out there aimlessly. I always have stuff like this in my Twitter mentions when something goes right, good or bad. Like when we faded Buffalo before they had lost in the goat heads this year, and I hadn't even considered that stat in my handicap at all. And someone commented on the post and said, "Didn't you know they're 12-0 in these jerseys and they lost 5-0 to the Flyers?" So stuff like that doesn't hold, like in a nutshell, it doesn't hold predictive value. I think is
Yeah.
a good point to close the pod out with here. I think you can still just handicap the game in itself, which I think Tim's done well.
Yeah, absolutely. I like the Flames, and that brings another week of line change to a close. Off the top, our favorite underdogs, Buffalo, and Vegas, and then Nick had Columbus in Washington, catching the Caps on a back-to-back. Our best bets: San Jose, Calgary, and Carolina. We all pretty we're all on song with teams like the Habs and Canucks as well. So whether you are fading or following those bets, best of luck on Thursday night, a busy Thursday night in the NHL. We will be back with you guys again next week. I believe it's Wednesday. The NHL comes back, so it'll be Wednesday, Thursday from us as we head into the holiday season. And on that note, happy holidays. Thank you for listening, and rate, review, and subscribe. Thank you very much.